Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It is 1:02, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Data Analysis Subcommittee to order. Thank you for being here. Mr. Vogel, can you go ahead and do a roll call, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Ms. Basham?
Unmuting. I am
No
here.
worries. Thank you very much. Ms. Evans? I see you nodding, Ms. Evans. Mr. Geffen? Mr. Geffen. Mr. Cameron?
Present.
All right. Ms. Robertus? Ms. Robertus. And Mr. Sandoval? Mr. Sandoval. All right, Mr. Chair, 3 of the 6 members are present. Unfortunately, a quorum is not present. I'll let you know if somebody else comes in, however.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So being that we do not have a quorum, we will not approve our minutes from the last meeting, and we still need to approve the minutes from the meeting prior. So we will just hold on to those, and we will do those the next time we have a quorum. So, okay, well, let's go ahead and keep moving through our agenda. I think we've got some fun topics to work on today, all data analysis oriented, which is why we're all here. And before I forget, can I have Jill introduce herself? I don't know that she's been at one of our data analysis subcommittees, but Jill, would you be willing to say who you are and why you're here?
Hi everyone, I am Jill Sahlstrom. I am currently a senior in the ADS program at Minnesota State Mankato and working as a student volunteer under Roy.
Thank you for doing that, Jill. I appreciate it. So, okay, so let's move forward. So we are called to order. We are jumping over the minutes. So let's talk data analysis. I wanted to check in. One of the topics we talked about last time was looking at the POE or evidence standard state by state, and just wanted to check in to see if anyone has made any progress on any of their assignments from last time, and if not, that is okay. Just wanted to check in. So Mr. Vogel, I see that you have unmuted.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Just to check in on my end, I've been in touch with Mr. Esme, Josh Esme, and am collaborating now with one of his student clerks, I believe is his title, to check over that list and expand it further.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know that Chair Geffen will be working on looking over some of that, and then when we've got some more data, I will work on the map. And I think that was kind of our homework for what we'll be working on. So thank you, Mr. Vogel. Okay, I also wanted to give an update. Last time we talked about race disparity calculation. So I did reach out to one of my colleagues who does some I am tongue twisted today. Epidemiology work, and she's been helping me. And the calculations are pretty basic. The main thing we need to do is just make sure we're using same units per same units, and that will be the takeaway. So I think there will be some different calculations that we can do. So I will have more to bring back on that. I just want to make sure that I'm doing it right, so that we are, presenting things accurately. I think others may have been reaching out to some to ask about the calculations as well. So I just wanted to open up and see if anyone else had any updates regarding some of the disparity calculations. And if not, no worries. I can't remember. Okay. Well, let's keep moving forward. I just got a bunch of notes here I want to talk through. So we have moved forward with the request to DHS for some additional data. We've been working with the data subcommittee to make those requests. I know that there's been some emails today, and I have just walked back into my room here just a few moments ago, so I'm not fully up to speed on where we're at with them. But I do know that really what we were looking for data request wise was looking at some data regarding preponderance of the evidence regarding first-time domestic abuse, And then also we were looking at preponderance of the evidence where disqualification was not made, and looking at that by race. So I think those were some of the bigger pieces of additional data requests that we had requested. So I know some of you may have been involved in the email chain. Anyone willing to share kind of our current status on those requests, and imagine those will take a while to process. But Mr. Vogel, Ms. Evans, I think that I may have seen an email pop up from you as well, but just wanted to check in and get thoughts, questions, comments regarding the data.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, those three requests, the data to the subcommittee sent over to DHS last week, as I recall, late last week. And I've not heard any updates on that. The email chain you're referring to is then those questions, sort of more informal questions that came up offline yesterday. And yeah, Ms. Hussain sort of had some preliminary answers to those.
Got it. Very good. Thank you. So, okay.
And then I just did some clarification on the, we asked for the 21% of folks that, so 79% of people who ask for set-asides for drug convictions get them. And then I asked about the 21% that do not get them. Why don't they get them? Like a breakdown of why they don't get them, because we see a lot of them that are like, they didn't think turning in their police reports were that important. And like things like recency. And like, what does that mean? Recency from the sentence? Because during these times of COVID, that's the crime itself was 2.5 years ago. And so recency from what? And so I just would like to dive a little deeper into like the 21% that weren't granted a set aside was due to what? And so can we see what, like is that 79% actually even a little bigger? And then the other question I asked in addition to that is how many of the 60% of people who do not apply for the set aside after they do the initial application, additionally, how many of those are drug crimes? And so I want to see like the entire picture of what we're dealing with, because that could be potentially a whole nother section of workforce if we were to fix this issue, right?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, would you mind? Oh, sorry.
That was the email chain from me, because I'm a squeaky wheel.
And Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I'd sort of like to make a clarifying point on that.
Yeah, thank you. Go.
I'll actually share my screen here. So the 79% that I think I tossed around, or that Ms. Evans is referring to, is if you rank some of the data we've received in the most recent data set on provider types, we see that 79% of applicants who were disqualified and sought a set aside or some other sort of remedy, who wanted to work in substance use disorder treatment, 79% of them in 2018 did receive a favorable outcome from their perspective. They were able to work, 21% weren't. So I just want to clarify that that's not necessarily 79 and 21% of everyone who got a DQ for a drug-related offense, for example. They might have been somebody who got a drug DQ might have applied for a different program, for example.
Oh, I thought those were drug crimes.
No, hence why I wanted to clarify, Ms. Evans. Sorry.
Okay.
Good. Well, thank you for the clarification. So what I would like to do is, I believe Mr. Vogel, and this may have been part of what you were flashing up on the screen, you have done some work on our most recent data set. And I'd like us to just take some time as a committee to look through it, ponder questions together, think about display and such like that. When our chairs of the various committees, subcommittees met yesterday, one of the things we were asked to do is pay particular attention to, alcohol drug use and crimes and so forth, the 152 crimes, I believe. So certainly want to do that to the degree we can. But Mr. Vogel, why don't I just pause and turn it over to you so you can show us some of the work you've done, and then we'll go through it and consider where we might dig deeper, what might be helpful, and go from there. So Take it away, Mr. Vogel.
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Chair. And this isn't exactly like rocket science level work over here. I've just pretty much transferred the data from the newest DHS data set over to an Excel spreadsheet, and I sent a copy of that spreadsheet out earlier for you to work with. And then what I've done is taken that and essentially played around a little bit with tables 2 and 3. So table 1, I didn't do anything with beyond just transfer the data. That's breaking down reconsideration requests. But just to step back and clarify, the newest data sets in response to the question that you guys asked at a previous meeting, essentially seeking re-aggregated data to avoid these less than 10s. This data set reports outcomes of reconsideration requests by able to work or not able to work or in progress, which is a very negligible number. So based on that, table 1 is a breakdown of reconsideration requests by eligibility or ineligibility to work by race. Tables 1A and 1B are by race and gender, or sorry, by race for males and race for females. And again, I just pretty much just calculated percentages here. Table 2 is reporting the eligibility or ineligibility to work by the program that the applicant was applying to work for. And so here what I did is for 2018 and 2019, I essentially ranked them in order of how often, or the percentage by which this applicants received a eligible to work outcome. So we go from 95% of reconsideration applications for adult daycare receiving a able to work outcome, all the way down to only 19% of people who requested reconsideration for child foster care in 2018, or child foster care programs. And then similarly, 2019. And then table 3 essentially does the same thing, but for the initial disqualifying crime or conduct. And so here in and I've color coded this with sort of the tacit categories of people crime, property crime, substance related crime, and maltreatment determination that the data subcommittee had been using last month. This doesn't quite match some of the discussions that, say, the disqualification subcommittee's been having. For example, they sort of regard burglary as a both for people and property. But I did this for 2018 and 2019, and essentially did very basic statistics. And I think the main takeaway I draw here is that we see in 2018 roughly similar rates of successful reconsideration applications for people, property, and substance-related crimes, and similar, a few percentage points less for maltreatment determinations. Whereas in 2019, we still see very similar rates of successful reconsideration applications, but a much lower successful reconsideration application rate, there we go, for maltreatment determinations. So that just seems like an interesting element that jumped out to me that I'd like to highlight. And I suppose to mention the other thing that I found particularly interesting and worthy of highlighting is that 79% number. I know there's been a lot of discussion of substance use disorder treatment and people with a record due to their own personal histories who are potentially exactly who ought to be working in that field. And so I just wanted to highlight that 79% rate. And Ms. Basham, I see you raised your hand.
Thank you, Will. This is wonderful, first of all. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have a question on table 1 in columns J through P. So I'm looking at African American, sorry if I missed it and you said this already, but African American 29%, white 57%. Is that saying that 57% of Caucasians compared to 29%? Can you tell us what that is referring to?
Definitely, and thanks for raising that point. Actually, I can see how this would be a bit confusing. I mean, buried with this stuff so long that I don't really have much perspective anymore. So what I'm doing on columns J through P is calculating horizontally, as it were. So 30% of the total ineligible to work numbers were African American versus 57%. So I'm not calculating in this one. I'm not calculating the number I think you thought I was calculating or suggested I was calculating. That'd be down here, rows 14 through 22, where we see in 2018 that of African American applicants who sought reconsideration, 69% were successful and 31% were unsuccessful. So I think down here is honestly the more relevant calculation.
I agree now that I see that, compared to 31% of whites. Did I see that?
Compared to 71 and 29% of white applicants. So honestly, pretty similar percentages, it looks like.
Yeah, that's not a significant deviation.
In fact, glancing at this, it looks like it looks like I'd highlight Asian or Pacific Islander and Native American applicants as really being different from both African American and white applicants and the grand total average. But yeah, I need to come up with an elevator pitch to explain what I'm doing over here. I mostly did it for the sake of completeness, but I think you can see where I'm going with that.
It's just total number of applicants is all you did, right? The percentage of total number of.
Yeah, pretty much.
Eligible applicants.
Yeah.
So my question for our group here is, do we see value in putting any of these key points from this particular table into slides to present back to the big group? Are there some particular data points we want to state that are useful? Like what would be our key point? A takeaway from me is that, looking by race, there's not a significant, and I hate to use the word significant, there's not a large difference between races when it comes to determinations about eligibility to work and ineligibility to work. Or how would we want to frame that? Or what would we want to carry forward that is kind of that nugget that others might find useful? What are your thoughts?
So I think it's helpful to highlight the similarities between ineligible applicants and eligible applicants between African American and white. And then I think it's very important to point out that 50-50, that deviation for Native American applicants, because there are so many disparities for the Native American population in our state. Like when you look at disparities for Black and brown bodies, the Native American population is the largest disparities in our state for incarceration, for housing, for all of that. And so I think that'll be important for us to, it's good that it's similar for white and African American, but I think we still want to point out the disparity for Native American. And then I think too, again, maybe we want to point out the change from 2018 to 2019.
Got it. I'm wondering, Mr. Vogel, what's your comfort with this being a working meeting if we opened up a slide deck and created some slides together? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Certainly, Mr. Kammer. I think it might just be easiest if we just did it in this spreadsheet, if you don't mind. And
that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, however you find useful. I'm trying to think, from a visual presentation perspective of, I don't know how small this would be, but if we were to create something that had essentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pie charts, they would be small, but just, I'm trying to think of the best way to graphically just show this so people can see, oh, African American individuals, 69% applicant was determined eligible to work, 31% ineligible to work, and just something, visually simple for people to look and go by each of the categories, the differences. Or do we just want to feature, African American, Asian? Well, I feel like we should capture all of them. Or is there a different type of table or chart that would be simple for all of our viewers, all of our consumers to look at? What are others' thoughts about what we'd want this to look like?
Do you think with a sample size of 48 that's very accurate data?
It's small. We definitely want to note it. I'd recommend if we do any pie charts, we definitely want to include not just percentages, but also, the actual, numbers that go along with it. Just so no one, assumes that these are all same size, samples, because they're not.
Yeah.
I think it's still important to capture.
Because if, not that we want to leave out populations, but if we did African American, Native American, and white, and did 3 pie charts across for 2018, and then we could do another slide with 3 pie charts across for 2019, and just show the 2 years like that.
Otherwise, the other thing I guess we could do is hold on this until we get the collapse data to look at white versus white, and then individuals of color, if that makes any sense, if we want to just have 2. But there might be some merit in looking more granularly at this.
I think because of the disparity with the Native Americans, we want to point that out.
That's my inclination to Ms. Evans. So okay.
And it's very interesting to see in 2018, it was almost half and half. And then in 2019, it went to 65-35. And I know it's a little different than that, but, and to wonder about I can't imagine it's not the same thing. Like, we've been asking what was the differences between 2018 and 2019, and it ended up being the child block grants is the answer almost every time. And so I can't imagine that's probably Ms. Kassane. Is that going to be the answer to the changes?
Vice Chair Evans, and members, I would want to double check, but that's definitely the number, the reason for the increased number of studies in 2019, or the increased number of childcare studies.
Yep. And so, so maybe that would be a question we would want to have an answer to with, you would kind of assume that would be the difference in numbers for set asides as well. But we maybe want to find out why the difference between 2018 and 2019 in set aside numbers as well. Does everyone agree that it's data we want to know?
I think so, just to be sure. I think we have, our kind of our working hypothesis there, but it's always good to check and confirm.
Because they all went down. African American went down, the eligible to work ones went down, and the ineligible went up. White eligible to work went down. It pretty evenly went down across the board, except for none provided. The eligible to work went up, and the ineligible to work went down. Like, I don't even know how that happens. So, but but weird, right? The none provided.
Ms. Evans, Mr. Chair, I guess one point I'd make is in 2018, we see a relatively low number of none provided. So that could have something to do with it.
And
Not
then
sure.
much more in 2019.
Yeah.
So,
I guess if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, one thing that stands out to me also is I should correct what I said about basically equal percentages between African-American and white applicants. That's just for 2018. There's about a 10% difference or 10 percentage point difference in 2019. I said that for 2018, there's about a 10 percentage point difference for 2019. There we go. So let's see.
Can
So-
Mr. Vogel, can I just share and share kind of a working document of what I'm thinking might be helpful for us to display and
Please, Mr. Chair.
yeah, I was just thinking if we do something like this, I haven't titled it. Is this appearing for everyone?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, so I think, you know, the stacked bars might work good in a situation like this. So if we just added each of our categories here, we'd want to label them out. So for, I'm just going to see here, and I'm going to get rid of this. Yeah, so so if we had applicant eligible to work, could you give me for 2018, Mr. Vogel, the eligible to work?
573, Mr. Chair.
And ineligible to work, 62?
262.
Oh, 262, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
41 and a less than 10 that, well, I'm not going to try to speculate on what that precise number is.
Yeah.
For Native Americans, 52 and 41.
Oops, well.
And then for white applicants, 12, 12 and 493.
Got it. So we could do something like that. Does that seem to make it? How easy and apparent is that to read? What are your thoughts, everyone? I think we need to just, you know, make sure that we are. Oops.
so pretty sure Will can't speculate on the less than 10 number, but I can because I don't work for the LCC, and I'm pretty sure that number is 7 because 48 minus 41 is 7. So
Yeah, I just
so you don't have to put that in there if you don't want to, but there's no in processes, and
right.
Yeah.
the total number is 48. And
Mr. Chair, Ms. Evans, by way of explanation, since this is a public meeting, I'm just trying to respect the data privacy. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'd say, yeah, we want to do that just to, you know, we'd want to stick with the, you know, non-defined, just, you know, to be respectful in that regard. So your math skills are likely very correct there, Ms. Evans, but I think again, just out of respect, we'd want to just, since it is less than 10, we just want to leave it non-disclosed and such. So it's just a good data practice. So
I can tell you, Mr. Chair, that 41 is about 85% of 48. So about 85% of Asian or Pacific Islander applicants in 2018 turned out to be eligible to work.
got it. Thank you. So would stacked bars be a good way to look at this? just, the spirit of working, I just want to kind of craft some of this so we don't make Mr. Vogel do it all. And then let's see, and I don't have the spreadsheet opened up as well, but what we would want to title this would be like 2018. Well, actually, we put the 2018 at the end in parentheses probably, but
Eligible versus ineligible to work by race.
Yep.
Don't we have these spreadsheets that we're looking at posted online?
Ms. Evans, Mr. Chair, we have PDF, we have copies of the PDFs that DHS has sent over posted online. I don't believe we presently have the spreadsheets, but we can do that. We've been treating them as working documents since, well, we're working in them. And so it didn't make a lot of sense to post one version and then to edit it and in a working meeting and it not be a lot online, but just let me know if you'd like me to post a version.
And we want to say these are from, how do we frame this? Set aside requests, determined eligible to work versus ineligible to work. What would be the correct language?
Mr. Chair, if I might make a suggestion, reconsideration requests.
Thank you. There's the word I was looking for, Mr. Vogel. Thank you.
And then somewhere in there, you should put by race.
Yep. Then.
And since we have space, does it, I'm going to use this word, behoove us?
Ooh, fancy words.
Yep, it is. It's my $10 word for the day. To put in there the, which is the other one that is kind of other or unknown, because that's a pretty significant number, 183. And sometimes I think people use that when they have multiple ethnicities.
So as I'm going through, the tough part with some of the data labels here is that we've got some very small versus very big, but does anyone have a preference? We can always, we'll come back.
Does it change anything to put it on there or not put it on there? I don't know.
We can play with that later, but I think it gives the general sort of concept. So Ms. Evans, you had said that you think that we should also add in
Unknown or other. And that, are you ready for the numbers?
We're ready for it.
131 eligible and 54 ineligible.
I am going to Yep, it's rather busy right now. So
I don't know that I like them little white boxes, Roy.
I don't either. I think we just got to figure out the best formatting for it. So let me go ahead and get rid of those. Also, one of the downsides of using PowerPoint to do this rather than, whoops. sorry, but I could get. I want to get rid of these as well. And of course, my coherency in doing this in front of people is not going to be great. So
Yep, because then you get nervous. Can you just click on it and delete them?
what we're going to do is we're just going to go back a little ways. Yeah, let's do that. And I am then going to just go ahead, edit data, and that should still be in there. Okay, so that's what it looks like with no labels as of right now. How do we like that?
Yep, and then if you want to do it, if you have time, or if you want to send it to me, and then we can either put the numbers in, I think it'll be more readable in white in there, or if you want to put the data labels in like bubbles on the sides or whatever.
Yeah, I
instead of
think they
over the
just,
top.
yeah, I agree. They all got to either be inside or outside or something consistent, just so it's readable. But how do you all like the stacked bars versus doing a few different pie charts? Is this digestible for others?
I think it is. And then tell me what you're gonna say, because this looks like something, but then what is the messaging for this?
See, that's where I'm wondering though. I'm wondering.
Because when we talked about it, this looked even.
Right. So that's where I'm wondering if doing.
And it doesn't land like that because there are so many more white people than there are African-American people. The percentages were the same. The numbers are different. So it doesn't land right in a stacked bar chart.
Yeah, I am wondering if, let's do a new slide here. And I just want to go.
Could you do four, see what that looks like? Do 4 pie charts and see how yitto it is.
That's what I was gonna, you were reading my mind, Miss Evans. So let's just go ahead. Let's go and do a pie chart. Something like this. And we're going to just do, well, we just need to do, take that back. We just need to do eligible to work, and we need to do ineligible to work.
I have the numbers when you're ready.
Okay.
And then
Okay, so let's just go for, let's go.
So African-American is
American
573,
573
262,
and 262.
and then Asian Pacific Islander.
Actually, hold tight for just a minute here. Oops, what did I do wrong? Yep, so 573 and 262, correct?
Correct.
There we go, it's populated correctly right now. So I want to just do something like that, okay? We're going to move this one over a little bit further as well. Just so we have plenty of room. And we're going to edit data here. And for this one, we are going to go Native American.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Um,
Or typically next is
Asian Pacific Islander is what's next on the chart. If they're in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
And that's eligible 41 and then less than 10.
Sorry, I was a little slow there. Say that again.
41 eligible to work
Yep. And we'll go.
and then less than 10.
Oops. Okay. And I will work on sizing there in a moment. It's just because the title is larger.
Yep. And we could even do it make them a little bigger and do it in 4 squares, right?
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So let's do this next one here, which we'll do Native American. Is that next, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what we got?
52 and 41.
Oops, and I clicked on the wrong one. So bear with me here for a moment. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Ah. I'm sorry.
You're doing great, Roy.
Yeah, there's the good and the bad of work meetings. So you get to experience Roy's humanity in real time here. Okay, so let me get back to this one here. So this is supposed to be Asian American or Pacific Islander. Is that exactly how it appears?
Yep.
And eligible to work on this one again was
40, 41.
41 and then less than 10.
Correct.
Thank you so much. And this one here is edit.
Native American.
Yeah. Okay. Native American, and this one, the numbers
52 and 41.
52 and 41. Okay.
And then white.
Bum, 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 bum. White.
And it is 1212
Well,
and 493.
493. And then do we also want to do one for like total, just so we have kind of a, I guess we don't need comparison point to the average, but I'm just going to put, I don't want it to do the, oops. Should I make them all a bit larger and keep them in one row, or do you?
Yep, or you could stagger them, do one kind of on the bottom and one closer to the top, and then one kind of on the bottom and one closer to the top if you wanted to. But they're, I mean, they look big enough. It's interesting, they they don't look like the same percentages.
Well, let's take a look at what we're doing. What I may have done incorrectly then. Now, these are not all sized the same, but we are going to call it. We're going to call it good.
Yeah, if you just pull the African American one down and the second one down, they'll look less squished.
Pull them down. What-
Just the whole, like, take the African American one down and pull it to the bottom of the slide. Like the whole box, you know?
I keep grabbing and there we go.
There you go. And then take the Native American one and pull it down too. And then it'll just look less busy, you know? Yep, just pull the edge of the box, like there you go.
There we go.
So, yeah, that shows definitely that the Native American one is, much more, the disparity on there is,
Yeah, I think this is a better display for what we're trying to accomplish.
it for sure is.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
would you mind pulling up the data you put in for the white category? Because I agree with Ms. Evans that doesn't look right.
I probably entered something incorrectly, so
No, those numbers are correct, Mr. Chair.
And then pull up the number for African American. Let's make sure that those are right as well. Yep, that's right too. And where is the data from your
Actually,
charts?
Oh. Sorry, what do you mean, Ms. Evans?
Well, this data that you put in down here that says 69 and 31 and.
That's the same numbers that Mr. Cameron just entered, but actually it looks like now that he's gone into the white category and
Oh, it
hit
changed.
enter again, it repopulated. So
yeah, sometimes it's a little finicky. So
There we go. Now it looks even. Perfect. Look at that. And then just to save time, Roy, you can go right into the bar chart one and cut the title and pop it right into there. Then we don't even have
do
to.
that.
Perfect.
Go ahead. Ms. Basham, did you say something?
I just said great job.
Oh, thanks. So let's get rid of this. We're going to get rid of the bar chart. We'll keep this. And are we okay with adding some data labels there?
Yep, I would. Maybe the bubbles on the sides would be better, or if you just turn the text to white instead of black. I think it'll be more visible.
Got it. Got it. You want data and percentage?
Sure.
Is that okay? And I'll go back and reformat it to be white later on.
Yep.
And okay. Yeah, I want to mess with this one because we don't want it to be percentage on this one because.
Yep, it looks like 0. Yeah, my point when I said it isn't the stuff, the documents we're working off posted on site, on the website, like anybody could have gone in and done that math, right? And so I understand, but it's super frustrating.
as a suggestion, Mr. Chair, I mean, I think we're definitely fine to point out the obvious that the percentages on Asian or Pacific Islander are 85% eligible and 15% ineligible to work. So for example, if it's possible to manually edit the numbers there, you could have the underlying data be 85 and 15 and then manually edit the correct numbers in.
Let's do that. And Mr. Vogel, give me that percentage again.
85% eligible, 15% ineligible. But my point, Mr. Chair, is if you went in and edited the data again, you could just put 85 and 15 as absolute numbers and then go in and manually edit the numbers that are being reported on the chart. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone, though. Might just be me. That would get a chart that's reporting the percentages, and then, yeah, I'm gonna stop talking.
I see what you're saying. I'm saying rather than doing, let's just do 85%. And let's do, was it
15%, Mr. Chair.
that would, yep, that would make sense. We're working with. Oh goodness, I'm trying to remember. There is a. Format. How about that? And we will just do this. And we will add data labels, and we will format our data labels. Okay. Legible, understandable.
Yep, and I think if you were just gonna, point out the similarities and the differences.
I like to be explicit, so let's just go ahead and we're going to enter a text box here and just we're going to spell it out. How does that sound?
I think we can never say enough that only 1% of our population is Native American, and that the fact that half of applicants that are Native American that apply are being denied eligibility to work. Yeah.
Mr. Kamer,
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure on terminology, not to be lawyerly, but when I used to work in the appeals area, we would refer to set aside or not set aside. So I just want to make sure I'm clear. When we say not eligible to work, are we referring to people that applied for a reconsideration and it was not set aside? Because
No.
eligible to work versus eligible to
No, because what they gave us back for data was all these different categories that were like set aside, previously set aside. They gave us like 6 categories, and then we gave them back to them and said, can you give us this data back with just 2 categories? We just want to know, were they eligible to work or were they not eligible to work? Because the data they gave us, we couldn't really use. It was a lot of less than 10s. And, at the end of the day, we just want to know, are people able to work or not able to work?
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, Ms. Basham, I could read out the outcomes that are being lumped into these various categories if you'd like.
I would appreciate that. That would be helpful.
Certainly. So applicant eligible to work are the categories that and you can find this definition on the latest data set, data overview, part 4, supplement 2. Applicant eligible to work is lumping together the previously reported categories of previous set aside, remain set aside, rescind in total, set aside, limited set aside, and not set aside variance granted. And then applicant not eligible to work are the categories of withdrawn, correctness affirmed, and not set aside. And then there's the category of in process, which is just floating around.
So I would recommend that we add a note somewhere that explains what ineligible to work means, because in the context of appeals, we don't use the language ineligible to work. I understand why we did use this language. It's much simpler, but we should just make sure we have a note explaining what that means and what that includes.
I agree, because, you know, in the source document, it's obviously laid out for people to see, but we want to make sure anyone who would happen to see this also has access to, well, what exactly it means. Sorry.
Exactly.
I was trying to resize this just a little bit to make them all consistent. And nope. Well, we'll there we go.
Looks good, Roy.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm reconsidering though, Miss Evans, if we should just put them all, I know it's busier to put them all up here, but it would give us room down below to provide some, a little bit more narrative, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
So, any chance, Mr. Vogel, you can cut and paste that language for me of what's in which category into the chat, and then I can just grab that quick?
Sir, I can certainly cut and paste it, Mr. Chair. I'm gonna first send it as an email and then see if the chat's enabled, just
Oh, okay, if not, yeah, that's fine. So, okay, so in 2018, determinations of eligibility to work based on reconsideration.
And that should be in the chat now, Mr. Chair.
Awesome. Were
Perfect. And then you could return and then put a couple asterisks and then cut and paste what we'll just put in the chat.
hey, we're getting there.
And I actually just sent the 3 categories as 3 different messages, Mr. Chair, for ease of copy and pasting.
You're good. We'll just go with this. And all of the, if we're going to include in process, we should actually include that as zeros, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, they were all less than 10s, if I remember right. Yep, African American less than 10, Native American less than 10, grand total less than 10.
Got it. Or
So it just mucks up the data really.
In-process determinations were less than 10 for all race.
Let me make sure that that's true for 2019 too. Are we going to do 2019 too?
Of course we are.
So that's true for all race categories, but not for the grand total. So that statement you just made remains true.
Okay. So how do we feel about this?
My only request would be that you make the title of it just a little bit smaller font so it fits on 2 lines. Perfect. Looks great. It's going to be really little, but it is what it is.
I feel like this can be made smaller down here just because that.
And you can talk about that when you present it. Just say, here's what we did to, make this data simpler. We asked DHS to give us 2 categories instead of all these categories, and you're welcome to hop on the website. It's all posted there, which categories we put together to get eligible to work and not eligible to work. And
Right. Okay, should we do 2019? Are we good with that?
I think we got a system now. It should go faster.
Yeah, other members, input, feedback. Do you like what we have created? Do you really want your input from a consumer perspective? Does this make sense?
Yes.
If you're reading it, okay, awesome. Thank you, Ms. Basham. Ms. Selstrom, are you still there?
I am.
Yeah. Does it
You
make
need to be an
sense?
honorary member. So speak up, girl.
Yeah.
So here's what my take. I have a little bit of experience with the verbiage of all of this stuff because of my experience having to submit them.
Yeah.
I would just have to, it's confusing language to someone who has not had to have any experience with it, unfortunately. And I don't think that there is any way to make it clear, because we have to stick with the language being universal for, all of our subcommittees and everyone we're working with. So that's the only thing I keep thinking about, how to make this language more friendly to the general public.
Yeah. Is there anything as we're going through it that you can think of that would be helpful, or something we could put in notes or something that would help to try to simplify it?
And here's the next thing, thinking of that, and here's the next layer of this. We have to explain this to legislators afterwards. Right. And they don't understand it just anymore. They're just average Joes, right? So when we take this to first human services and licensing, and then to public safety, who we're going to have to sell this to, they don't understand this stuff much better. And so really good thinking, Joe. We need to get this to understandable.
Yeah, I just to dumb it down so that it's, I don't know if adding in some little bit, a little definition to the word reconsideration, the word set aside, that would be maybe where I would say, a little bit of a definition type of thing. But we also have to keep it short and simple, because once you get past 6, 8, 10 definitions of things, you start to lose people, right?
Right.
So yeah, how can we hone it in and dumb it down for the best understanding to the most of the population that we're trying to reach.
Well, I would mirror that. I had a similar concern in some of the language, sort of in a different direction, although I completely agree with what you're saying, Jill. But like, we just have to also be careful that eligible to work versus not eligible to work, legislators will look at that and go, in its plain language, not eligible to work means not eligible to work anywhere. No, that's not what it means. It means not eligible to work in a state licensed facility. In this context, that's what it means. So yeah, you could add that language there, or you could add it as another note or footnote. And another note could be the difference, if we don't want to have too much language, at least explaining reconsideration versus variance and set aside those three things. So reconsideration would mean, well, I assume this group knows what those mean. Otherwise, I could say what they mean, but they're all different, as we know. A variance is not the same as a set aside.
Yeah, so I think those three things right there specifically would probably give the best understanding of this, all of the language that we have kind of going on here.
Were those definitions part of the original PDF that we got?
Yeah.
They were, along with multiple other definitions.
And so that may be when we do our final report, we may want to add some of those.
Yeah,
Just
pull a few of those.
I don't know that we need to do it for like this particular document, and like we could refer to it though, if anybody, to just be clear for the public as we're presenting on Friday, Roy, you may want to say if anybody has any questions about definitions of any of these terms, please refer to the PDFs, the four PDFs that we received from DHS. Because I agree, Jill, like without being in this, who could know? And
with as much as I've had to go back and forth with doing set asides and all of that paperwork, like it's still a lot to take in just a couple sentences. Like even that heading is like, that's a lot to take on.
Should we go to 2019?
Yeah. Is there anything else we at a minimum want to add here? Did we want to add definition of reconsideration, or is that too much here? Because I want to. Oh, go ahead.
I don't know that. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while now. So you could, if you want, or you could refer them to the PDFs, or.
I don't think it necessarily needs to be on this slide but if we do have that kind of like disclaimer at the end, like if you are not clear on the definitions of some of this terminology, please refer to this PDF that will spell out those definitions for you.
Yep.
So if you want to just copy this whole slide.
Yep, I will do that. Do we want to add to the title reconsideration request by disqualified individuals? Again, I'm arguing myself out of it.
Like as you even say that, that sounds like adding one more thing to understand in the slide.
The process, yeah. Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead here. We're going to go 2019, and let's go ahead and let's edit some data here.
All right, so the first one, 705 and 553.
705 and 553.
Yep, and next one is 55 and 24.
I just want to. It doesn't always populate right away. Okay, there we go. Now it populated. Okay, let me get out of here and let me edit the data here. And what were these ones again? Gina?
55 and 24.
Okay, so we actually have,
Yep, there's enough.
oops,
Oops.
well,
You'll have to turn off the percentages, huh?
yep, I will. That cells and we don't have it as
No decimal places.
oh. Oh, thank
Yeah,
you,
sure.
Gina. I should have, gotten rid of the. There we go. If at first you don't succeed.
Perfect.
For anyone watching today, this is a lesson in perseverance and
And what a working meeting can look like.
and what a working meeting can look like. Absolutely. I did not want that. I want format data labels, and we are going to add percentage on this one. Okay, got it. And here we go.
Yeah. 99 and 57.
99 and 57. Okay, and
Right here, I'm right here.
And 1535. And 783.
okay.
Look at those numbers change, huh?
Yeah. I mean, they're not that stark of a difference, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I just feel like here the biggest call out for me is that, you know, when we look at the different categories, the lowest was, you know, in terms of those being determined eligible to work, the lowest rate was for African Americans.
Yep. And sometimes it's okay for us to say there's nothing to report, right?
Yeah.
We looked at all this data and like it.
We're looking at this one now, you look at the discrepancy between white and native in 2018, and then now it's like percentage wise, it evened out in 2019 for white and native, and then it kind of flopped for the other two to have bigger discrepancies.
So it could have been an anomaly in 2018.
Yeah. It'd be great to have like 3 years, you know, to 3 or 4, just to start taking a look. Ah, Michelle, your puppy is so cute.
Thank you.
What kind?
She's the best kind. She's a rescue.
Mm.
She was.
Do you know
used,
what she's got in her though?
according to her doggy DNA test, she's part Shih Tzu and part Lhasa.
Yeah, she's
I
got
see
that
it.
fluffy face.
So cute.
She was used as a bait dog as a baby, and
Oh,
then rescued. Thank goodness.
good.
So, and remind me was there any more POE numbers we were supposed to look at, or then we were supposed to move on and do a little looking for drug convictions?
That was our other task that we were assigned to do. So,
Yep. So I think this is great. Looking at reconsideration requests, I think like looking at this and seeing like, you know, a little disparities for, you know, between races, for Native Americans in 2018 and some for African American in 2019, but for the most part, it's kind of similar across the board for reconsideration requests and eligibility to work and how we lump them together. And you know, I think nothing to report is like good news, right?
right.
Yes.
And that's important that we report out that as well.
Yeah.
So nothing to see here, move along, kind of. So,
Nothing to see.
So, Mr. Vogel, can I send this to you to put in the master saving space of all things data analysis?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, and I'll distribute a copy to the members as well.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Well, I'm wondering, Mr. Vogel, would you be willing to pull back up your data set 4, where you had done the calculations? I think it was table 2.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So data set 4, supplement 2. You wanted to look at table 2 here?
I think it was it table 2?
I think it's 3.
Tables. So here we have table 1, we did the racial breakdown, table 2, provider type, table 3, underlying crime or conduct.
Yeah. I think 2 or 3 would be fine. So,
Are you thinking the provider type or?
well, I guess provider type's not as important. I think, you know, our task was the 152 crimes, right?
Yep.
So, so I think that's going to be more table 3. So,
Yeah. And so that 79% that I was talking about did come from that piece of data that Will was talking about, but the number that it actually is not that far off. If you scroll down to the bottom, Will, it's actually 76%.
so is that in
Substance crimes are granted eligibility to work. So
Here.
not super far off anyways. And so if you want to make that note, Ms. Kazane, that the number that I said, that 21% is actually 25. And so just to make that note, that lucky for us, it was just a little bit off. But just looking at those with substance, if that's even information you all can get, like for the 152 crimes that are deemed ineligible for whatever reason, like what are the reasons? And like the 10-year bar was kind of new information for me. And so just kind of digging down into that, if we're going to look at like some kind of cutout for those, to find out, like, you know, who are the, not who are, like, yes, I want to know every single person, not who are they, but like, why are those folks deemed ineligible? And so to kind of, in order to think outside the box, and any insight that you have, Michelle, would be great. So.
Yeah, so I guess my question with this again is looking at this table and looking at the information that, Mr. Vogel's put together is, is there a way we want to display this? Is there a way we want to simplify it? I mean, is there a slide we want to put together to share with the larger task force? What makes sense?
Have we done a slide that shows of all of the kind of like what we just did, except for what are the three categories that we've come up with? Substance, people, and property.
Yes, Ms. Evans, plus maltreatment determinations.
So it would be 4 again.
Yeah.
Oh, and we've determined they're all very similar, huh?
In 2018. In
Yep.
2019, as I highlighted, maltreatment was significantly less likely to have a DQ reversed, or I'm using imprecise language, but you were less likely to win a reconsideration request if it was a maltreatment determination in 2019.
Yeah.
And I should note these categories, like, please double check me on whether you agree that something should go in them. For example, I'm putting felony driving while impaired in substance related crimes, which had been the practice the data subcommittee had been using, but I don't think may not be consistent with how the disqualification subcommittee is working right now.
Ms. Evans, do you know, have we made as a task force a final determination or agreement from someone on the legal, more legal end say, yeah, we agree, people, property, substance, maltreatment? Do we have a definitive?
On all these crimes?
Yeah, kind of.
So we're going through them right now and kind of voting. And there's this like third kind of or fourth kind of random category that is things like and I've remained fairly quiet, like I've pushed back a little bit, but like things like identity theft, they've called people property because they, like the judge and the county attorney's office, feel like that crime, there's so much like violation of someone's like personhood and whole life that there's like a personal, and like my argument back was like, you tell somebody who's been raped or assaulted that your identity theft encroaches on the same kind of crime they've been had done. Like, let's have that conversation with a victim in the room. And so, but they kind of held fast that the violation that comes along with identity theft and as much work and stuff that has to go into that. And then the same thing with like coercion, just because there's so much like violation and fear and like, like there's just something about some of those kind of crimes that are just so, even though it's not physically personal, that there's like this emotional violation that goes along with some of those crimes that make them people crimes. And I don't have a great argument against it that there wasn't a ton of them that I did a lot of arguing with, but those were two of them specifically that I piped up and like argued my side of it. And then they wrote people property. So it's like this kind of weird additional category that is kind of in both venues, but the rest of them were all, I would say, fairly cut and dry. Wouldn't you? Well,
I believe so, Ms. Evans. And I guess to clarify where I was thinking in like using these categories, my thinking was whether, for example, the 58 total reconsideration applicants in burglary count as people or property isn't entirely irrelevant, but it doesn't hugely change these numbers here. And likewise, it's not the impression I have from the discussions that I've been hearing in the various subcommittees is that the subcommittees would like to know if, for example, there's major disparities in set-asides or something like that between, say, violent crimes and crimes of poverty, which are two other terms that have been bandied about. But it's not like these are precise legal definitions that I'm getting the impression the task force wants to write into law. Correct me if I'm wrong, members. So all this is to say that my reasoning in going ahead and using these categories, even when they're somewhat ambiguous, is that this is a rough look at, can we see roughly consistent numbers here, which we can, or do we see a inconsistency as we do in 2019, rather than some precise figure, if you see what I mean. Correct me if that's an incorrect philosophical approach, but that's sort of what's underlying all of this for me.
The other one was burglary, and it wasn't across the board. So first degree burglary, they called a people crime. And then the other three levels were property, because first degree burglary is burglary of an occupied dwelling. And then the other three are unoccupied buildings. But we've been doing a really thorough job of going through each individual crime. And I think we ended on drug crimes, the 152 crimes. And then we're gonna talk about them next time. And I think that just knowing the population that we're going to be working with later on, I think all of them, minus the, controlled substance crime in the first degree, and then sales are like that, that's going to be the hard part. Right now, 152 crimes are considered crimes of violence in the state of Minnesota. That's where they're labeled under crimes of violence, which makes it so that you can't get a pardon until 10 years from release from supervision, and they're not eligible except for a 5th degree. They're not eligible for expungement either, because of where they are listed in the criminal code. So
thank you. That's helpful context. I'm wondering though, since we have another committee working on finalizing kind of the categorization here, if we don't want to wait on creating any sort of graphic or table until they're locked in on the classifications. It doesn't sound like they'll change the numbers dramatically, but I
think one graphic would be good, just showing that this bottom scroll up, down. Oh, I get it wrong every time. I think one graphic showing that of the 503 substance crimes, just the substance crimes, out of the 664 substance crimes, 503 of them ended up being eligible to work in 2018. And then we could do the same thing for 2019. Of the however many, there ended up being 943. I think those would be good numbers to show that the bulk of folks end up being eligible to work at the end of the day. And I think those will be good. Same thing with property, the fact that
they're all about the same, except for the known maltreatment,
Yep.
Um,
and we knew that already, right? That the bulk of set-asides get set aside. What was the number we got at the beginning that they told us?
I don't know the exact number, but kind of my operating sort of belief is been that a good number of those who request them get them. I think my concern is that there's a number of people who just don't request them because they don't have the resources or the, such to make it happen. But the takeaway for this, for me to share with anyone, is that obviously request one, because there's a chance, there's a good chance, based on what we're seeing, that it may be set aside. So
I agree with you. Like what they're really looking at this, I was thinking that substance use gets set aside more often than other stuff, and the reality of it is it doesn't.
It doesn't. No.
And so maybe that's the data that we show. Like,
yeah. The only thing we could do if they really want to do substances, I don't know if there's merit in this, if we want to just look at substances in general, since that's what they're looking at, and see if within those yellow coded substance, known substance crimes, are there ones that really stand out where it's higher, larger numbers than others. It looks like the largest one is 82%, which is controlled substance in the 4th degree is the most common percentage for determining, for a determination that the person is eligible to work, but that's not that different from 3rd degree, which is at 80%. And the 3rd degree is a lot more individuals numbers wise. I don't know that I'm seeing anything that novel to me, or that's significant to me, that just really stands out.
So I would say this though, so going to table 2.2 now, let me look at table 2.2. That first set of data we're looking at is 2018, right? And so of the most eligible applicant eligible to work, DHS, home and community-based services, had 500 eligible to work. And then we're next at 300. So we're the second highest. Oh no, that's not true. DHS and then MDH, home-based care providers. And then us at 200. So we're the third most. Substance use disorder treatment is the third highest set asides. And so, how do those two sets of numbers play together, with I'm trying to make a case here.
I think the thing we have to keep in mind, I think there's a perception sometimes that the most common crimes, that we're dealing with for people who are requesting to work in a substance use disorder treatment facility are substance related, but that's just not the case. I mean, there's obviously other types of crimes and conduct that are there. Of course, it's a large part, but it's not the only part.
Well, being somebody that was in that life, though, I'm telling you that theft, which is the number 1 crime, is drug related. Like, I was stealing purses to get money to do drug, I'm not a thief. Like that was a behavior of my addiction, right?
Absolutely.
So,
I look at that and same thing with a lot of those people in property crimes. There's so much substance abuse related to the reasoning for a lot of those, even though they're not the primary substance use, but the contributing factor is substance use.
Right. Totally agree. And, in our perfect world, we'd be able to go back and know which ones were, and they just haven't been coded that way. Yet I agree with you. I agree with you so much that a lot of them, for many individuals, were probably drug related and or drug motivated or drug seeking motivated or drug use motivated. And yet it's a piece of data we we don't have, we know anecdotally for sure that there's a large part to be played there. So
the other thing I was thinking about too, looking at the chart that showed how many determinations were eligible to work, what was that time frame? Like, I just think, how many months did somebody wait to then, were they able to accept the position that they were waiting on that for, or not, because they had to have other employment in the meantime, and then it didn't end up being a factor?
I think that's a piece of information that is still coming our way. We requested timeline data, correct, Mr. Vogel? And I think that's still one of the pieces that is yet to be delivered, correct?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
Yep. So Jill, I hope at some point in time we'll be able to answer that question a little bit better. So I just imagine it's complex and there's a lot to pulling that and compiling it. So, but we will have it. We will have it to look at some point in time. So Gina, just jumping back to you, is there anything here that you think is noteworthy that we should put into a charter table to report out next Friday?
I don't know. Other than, do you think it's noteworthy to show? I feel like it is noteworthy to show that there's no, like, it's the same. Like, I feel like, and maybe it is just cutting and pasting this known people, known property. And granted, it's not exactly the same as what we're going through. But you could just, I don't even know that we need to do charts. You could just cut this bottom known people, known property, known substance, known maltreatment, and then squish it together, because you don't need all that space if you just put it into a different Excel thing to show that, like, that it, it went up in 2019, but you could start with the 2018 one and just show that it's pretty even for people, property, substance, and then maltreatment, and then whatever the change was in 2019 for us to get into compliance, changed the
Sorry, Ms. Evans, if I'm being distracting, just bear with me a second.
But changed the maltreatment numbers in 2019. But I think that's noteworthy, don't you? That they're all, I know that I, for one, was thinking that substance use would be for sure, that people would be a lower rate of eligible to work. I thought for sure that would be true, didn't you?
I didn't know. I mean, I think that would have been my thought, that there might have been greater consideration provided there, but I mean, it's not. So I'm trying to figure out what exactly my hypothesis was before we knew the data. But
and so I think that's noteworthy to show that
so we would title the slide something to the effect of eligible to work versus ineligible to work determination based on crime category, or what do we want to do? Category of
conduct, crime or conduct, category of crime or conduct.
Okay. And Mr. Vogel, are you able to quickly, I'm trying to think the best way to grab this from you. So we can put it.
Mr. Chair, I could just save this Excel sheet and send it over to you by email. That might be the most
sounds
expeditious.
Good. Let's do that. Then I'll grab it and we'll put it into a slide. And I think that will be our probably our last piece of work that we will do together today in our work meeting.
Sounds good. And it should be, sorry, that's the wrong one. Just a moment.
Okay.
It should be sheet 1 down, the tab entitled sheet 1 down here.
Sheet 1, okay, got it.
PC.
And thank you to those who are watching this or joining us. Just a quick reminder, it's a working meeting, so I appreciate anyone's patience and flexibility as we work through this together. Bum, 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 bum. And I will watch for it here, Mr. Vogel.
And that data is all at the very bottom of table 3A and 3 2018 and 3 2019. If you wanted to add a little bit more of the data, Roy. I don't know if you do or don't, but
I don't know. I'm thinking it just, because I really think our big takeaway is based on the categories we have, the percentage of people determined eligible to work, is really pretty similar from category to category. I mean, I think that is the takeaway.
Yep.
And let me just go. I'm going to, Mr. Vogel, if you'd want to stop sharing your screen, I will reshare my screen. Okay. And I want to
Look at your fancy design ideas.
well, I don't know that I go that far. But, and I do think that we want to make some sort of note under here that I'm going to just go insert. I'm going to insert a text box. And I just want to go based on unofficial classifications of crimes and
Conduct.
as determined by the something like that. Okay, I should spell that out because
And that's not even actually true. Like that was initial. There you go.
I'm going to put a date on it too, just so we know when we something like that. Okay, just are we okay with that? Feedback, input, anyone?
I like accurate.
Me too.
It's like a little hunting expedition every time we dive into these numbers.
I think it's fun. I hope everyone else shares that same feeling.
Will you fix that title and make it only take up 2 lines?
Of course, of course.
Thanks.
Okay, do we feel good with this?
Mhm.
Mr. Vogel, does this seem accurate based on your work? Are we representing it correctly?
I believe so, Mr. Chair. I suppose this would be a good time to interject that eligible to work, as Ms. Bastian pointed out, given how it's a problematic term, that's just the term I think that we suggested to DHS in requesting that data. So it's not like it's sacrosanct. If some other term works better, yeah.
Got it. I could make this smaller and add the same same sort of actually, here's what I want to do. I'm going to just make this smaller here. Yeah, maybe we'll go a little bit larger here. And I could add the same notes that we did in the prior slides, because I just put this in the same PowerPoint for right now. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does that make sense, Mr. Vogel? Does that attend to that? And Ms. Basham, just to keep it here.
Makes sense on my end, Mr. Chair.
Makes sense to me. Thank you.
Yeah, just so we're being very transparent, descriptive.
I would put that back and just put the to work on the bottom line.
What's that?
Put, oh,
Can I
put
do?
to work. Put the 2019 eligible and then to work on the bottom line. So it's even. Oh,
Does this
okay.
work? Does this work out okay like this?
Yeah.
I like the. Whoops. Bum, bum, bum. 2019, we'll center this as well. Oops. Okay, how does this look, everyone? Like, not like?
Looks great.
Okay. We will call this good. And this is what I will be prepared to share with the task force when we meet again. It's not this Friday, but the following Friday, correct?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. I think this is some good data to be able to share. So, okay, any other comments, any other questions, any other thoughts about our work from today? So let's talk about next time, since we've still got a few minutes before 3 o'clock. Next time, Mr. Vogel, I know we've had this on hold for a while. You reworked some data displays from a few meetings ago. I think we want to keep that on the agenda and come back and take a look at those. We've had more pressing work, but we will come back and take a look at those.
Sounds good.
We will check in again on the POE. And I know it's not just POE, but you know, the POE, I'll say nation chart that we're trying to develop. And other things that we want to make sure we keep on our agenda for next time. Members.
Nothing for me.
And we may have some new data by then too, you know, so there's a chance that we'll have something new. If not, I'd say that we, you know, take some time choosing any of our old data sets to go back through. And I like where we've taken some time to say, what is the point here? And just to spell it out. So someday down the road, not too far away, when people are writing a report, you know, I think it's helpful for us just to have some of those nuggets of data that, you know, are the big takeaways when we take a look at, you know, data set 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we definitely have work to do. And I think crafting those points will be helpful to others in the report writing process. And hopefully just do more of the same. I enjoy spending time with you all and just looking through the data and deciding what's the best way to display it. That's will be helpful to others, and we'll keep working ahead in that manner. So with that, any final comments or questions before we call the meeting to an end? Okay, hearing none, it is 2:54 p.m. and let's adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in a couple weeks, if not sooner. Bye-bye.